Welcome back. There was a murder in Kodungayur. 45-year-old Shanti was set ablaze. She succumbed to the injuries. 36-year-old Damodaran, who's Shanti's friend, was arrested on charges of murder. Illicit affair is suspected to be the cause of crime. Kingfisher owner Vijay Mallya has said his airline is not shutting down. He had never asked government to any bailout or to pay from the taxpayers' money. Announcing a plan to reconfigure his aircraft, he says the government should look at allowing 100% FDI to bail out the aviation sector.
So we are here today to clarify to you whatever questions you may have. The cancellation of the 50-odd flights has been blamed on entirely the wrong reasons. Maybe, and I'm willing to accept, we could have handled it better. It was a commercially prudent decision. We cannot, as a private company, afford to fly on routes that are heavily loss-making. Airlines all over the world are struggling with high fuel costs because of high crude oil costs. I am an avid supporter of foreign direct investment. And I do not see any reason why foreign direct investment from strategic partners, which are airlines, should be banned or not permitted.
All Rajasthan cabinet ministers have handed in their resignation to Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot so that he can reconstitute his cabinet. The decision comes after Ashok Gehlot met all his ministers earlier today. Gehlot's several ministers have been hit by various scandals. The Banwari Devi case has been a matter of concern for the party high command, and it's not just that. Even the firing on Muslims in Gopalgarh in September has damaged the Congress party's image. But the BJP is saying a reshuffle is not enough and that Gehlot should resign. The other big story, UP Chief Minister Mayawati has made a strategic announcement ahead of elections in the state. She announced the cabinet has passed a proposal to split Uttar Pradesh into 4 parts, a long-standing demand. This will be put before the state assembly, but a final decision can only be taken by the centre. She announced it's for better administration.
हमारा ये मानना है कि यदि प्रशासनिक इकाइयां छोटी होंगी तो फिर कानून व्यवस्था एवं विकास कार्यों की स्थिति को बेहतर बनाने में प्रशासनिक तंत्र तथा उस इलाके की जनता को काफी ज्यादा सुविधा होगी। इसलिए हमने अपने प्रत्येक कार्यकाल में यहाँ प्रदेश में अनेकों नए मंडल, जिले व तहसील आदि का गठन किया है और इसी बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए उत्तर प्रदेश के समस्त क्षेत्रों में संतुलित व समग्र विकास उपलब्ध कराने और पूरे प्रदेश की जनता को बेहतर भविष्य दिलाने के लिए हमारी सरकार उत्तर प्रदेश के पुनर्गठन की हमेशा ही पक्षधर रही है।
Did M.M. Joshi, as Parliamentary Accounts Committee Chairman, call a CAG official and ask him to hurry up the probe? As if it was delayed, the government would get time to cover its tracks. NDTV has access to the letter the CAG official wrote to the Deputy CAG reporting the call. Joshi apparently also told the CAG official to keep in touch with him.
Scam report, we have access to a letter in which Mr. R.B. Sinha from the CAG's office had in fact recorded a phone conversation which he had received from which he had in fact had with Mr. Murli Manohar Joshi, the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, last year in July, while the report was in fact being prepared. In the letter, he says that Murli Manohar Joshi had in fact told him that there was tremendous pressure on Mr. Joshi from parliamentarians and media about the examination being done on the 2G scam, and if the probe is further delayed, the executive would get time to cover up the issues. Later on in the letter, he also mentions that the CAG's office should brief him again after the next meeting of the PAC, again in the middle of July. Now, this conversation is key because the question which is being brought up now is whether it was appropriate for the PAC chairman to communicate with the CAG while they were preparing that report. There was a questionnaire which had been sent by the Joint Parliamentary Committee to the CAG earlier, asking whether they had had any kind of discussion with PAC chairman or any of the members about the 2G scam report, and at that time the CAG officials had denied it, saying that the document is not a public document. Hence there was no question of discussing it before it was placed in the Parliament. But this phone conversation clearly shows that Mr. Joshi himself had been in touch with the CAG office. The key question now, of course, is what was the extent of the influence that PAC had on the CAG while they were preparing the 2G scam report, and whether Mr. Joshi had in fact been aware of the final amount of the 1.76 lakh crores figure which was put in the 2G scam report by the CAG's office.
It was hailed as a path-breaking piece of legislation to help battered women in India. But on the ground, the fight for justice in domestic violence cases is fraught with delay and other hurdles. 1 in every 4 women in the world is a victim of domestic violence. Our reporter Krishnamurthy outlines the practical difficulties many victims face.
Marital life for Sujata was like walking on a path full of thorns. She was abused by her husband and in-laws for petty issues. Unable to bear the torture, she filed a complaint of domestic violence against them. While the 2005 Act of Domestic Violence states that all cases should be disposed of within 60 days, Sujata's battle has been on for more than a year.
நான் மார்ச் மாதம் ஃபைல் பண்ணேன். எனக்கு மார்ச் மாதம் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் கொடுத்தேன். டொமஸ்டிக் ஆஃபீஸருக்கு ப்ரொடெக்ஷன் ஆஃபீஸர்கிட்ட கொடுத்தேன். அவங்க ஃபைல் பண்ணது ஜூலை மாதம். 4 மாதம் டைம் எடுத்துக்கிட்டாங்க. சொல்யூஷன் கிடைக்கணும். எல்லா இடத்துலையும் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் எடுத்தால் மட்டும் பத்தாது. இதனால் ஒரு ரெமிடி கிடைக்கணும்.
Legal experts feel the Domestic Violence Act has, at best, become a sort of paper tiger. The Act entitles every victim to approach the protection officer appointed by the government in every district. The officer will look into the facts of the case and present it before the magistrate. From the date of registration of the complaint with the magistrate, within 60 days, the victim should be awarded a judgment. In the meantime, the magistrate has the power to grant interim relief to the victim on the basis of the facts of the case. The interim relief options available are custody of children, financial assistance, and custody of valuables and assets.
Passing of the interim relief is a major thing in this kind of litigations. Once an interim relief is passed, that does a lot of things. Once it gives a support for the victim to sustain her case. Number 2, once the interim relief is passed, then the respondent will be more eager to complete the case as early as possible because they want to get an interim relief vacated. Okay. So once when the interim relief is not given, then it helps the respondent take as much delay as possible.
But the practical implementation of the Act leaves a lot to be desired. Advocates say that with no fixed time frame prescribed for the protection officers, they can take their own sweet time to investigate the facts. When the case finally reaches the magistrate, there is a delay again as they seek a reply from the respondent. So, there are hardly any cases being solved within the stipulated time.
The protection officers-லாம் கம்ப்ளைண்ட்டை வாங்கிட்டு அதை ஃபைல் பண்ணுறதுக்கு நிறைய டைம் எடுத்துக்கிறாங்க. அதாவது அந்த சீரியஸ்னஸ் புரிஞ்சிக்க மாட்டாங்க. எவ்வளோ கஷ்டமான சூழ்நிலையில் கொடுக்குறாங்கன்றதை புரிஞ்சிக்காம நான் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் கொடுத்து 3 மாதம் கழித்து தான் ஃபைலே பண்ணாங்க. ஃபைல் பண்ணி இன்னும் 3 months ஆகுது, இன்னும் ரெமிடியே கிடைக்கல. ஏன்னா 2 monthsலேயே இதை க்ளோஸ் பண்ணுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு இந்த சட்டப்படி சொல்லியிருக்காங்க 60 நாளில். எனக்கு இன்னும் எந்த ரிசல்ட்டும் கிடைக்கல.
With many cases of domestic violence piling up, activists have called for an overhaul of the legal procedure in granting relief to the victims.
It's an excellent piece of legislation, this Domestic Violence Prevention Act. Unfortunately, it's not being implemented properly. I think all of us have to work together, the government, the judiciary, the police. Everyone will have to have the will to do something and see that this act is implemented.
Human rights activists will submit a plea highlighting these facts to the Tamil Nadu government, Chief Justice of the Madras High Court and the Union Law Ministry. They only pray for a positive response in their aim to provide speedy disposal of domestic violence cases for the aggrieved parties. In Chennai with Krishnamurthy, Evelyn Matthew for NDTV Hindu.
For tennis fans, it's a heartbreaking news. More on that on the other side of the break.